Hey, what's going on, guys? If you're a rocket enthusiast like I am, then you were very excited for the Quasar Cannon being added into Helldivers 2 recently. We're going to be covering this weapon as well as the Recoilless Rifle and the Eats, how to use these all against bugs and bots, and then giving my comparisons and final thoughts near the end. We're even going to be talking about small details like how I aim these at specific enemies to land those precise shots and use the least amount of ammo possible. And I will say to start off this video that I think the Quasar Cannon is amazing, but I definitely think it's more of a side grade to the Recoilless Rifle and the Eats rather than a replacement. There are some things that a Recoilless can do that the Quasar can't, but it will be a replacement for some of you because there are some heavy upsides to the Quasar compared to the other two. As always, there will be timestamps available, so be sure to skip around this video if you would like to. And don't worry, I know I didn't mention the spear yet. Instead of covering the spear in depth, we're just going to be ranting about it at the end of the video. But right before we get into the testing, let's talk about today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Blazing Boost. Now, Blazing Boost provides the gaming community with professional services. In Helldivers 2, they offer currency farming, war bond leveling, and connecting you with a pro so that you can understand and play the game at a higher level. They have over 34,000 reviews on Trustpilot and have been in the industry since 2012. And they have pro players available to play with you instantly. You can use code THICK8 to get 8% off of any of your orders, and I recommend clicking their link in the description if you're looking to level up your Helldiving. So let's first go over the strength of these weapons when it comes to killing Bile Titans and Chargers. Each of these weapons can two-shot Bile Titans in the head. Now this can be tricky, but what I will say is that I aim between the forehead and the mouth, basically square in the nose. You kind of want to aim for the forehead, but not too high or it ends up hitting the back armor. You also want to be a little distance away from Titans, as I've noticed that shots from underneath aren't often the best or the most well aimed. Stun grenades are going to be your best friends when using rocket launchers, and I will mention stun grenades against some of the other enemies later. All three of these launchers will kill chargers with one shot to the head, but if the charger isn't really facing you, you can always shoot off any of the leg armor and finish it with your primary. So just covering those two enemies, I would say that the Quasar Cannon, Eat, and Recoilless Rifle all seem on par damage wise when it comes to the bugs. You can also destroy bug holes with all of these weapons. Now again, I will say that none of these weapons are ideal for bug holes due to their limited ammo, and in the Quasar Cannon's case, the long cooldown. But there is a specific bug hole that these are perfectly good against, and that is Stalker Lairs. So do keep in mind that these are fine to use on bug holes if you are the closest teammate near a Stalker Lair, for example, and that way you can get rid of it. Now, one thing worth mentioning for the Eat is that if you land the call-in close enough to a bug hole, it will also destroy it. Of course, this goes for any stratagem, but this is part of the Eat's kit. And if you're good at landing Eat on charger backs, you can also kill chargers with the call-in. And like I said, always be sure to use every aspect of your kit because we are limited on ammo, stratagem calls in, etc. When it comes to Shrieker Nests, each of these should two-shot them. Now, just keep in mind, I usually aim at the top mushroomy parts. I don't know if it's necessary to aim up there, but that's what I've been doing. And I will say that this gives the Quasar Cannon the advantage, specifically against Shrieker Nests, since it has infinite ammo, and you can do this from very long distances away. Now keep in mind that Shriekers don't spawn in unless you get about 130 meters, according to this Odo video I watched, and I've found his video to be accurate in my own gameplay as well. So if you can stay at least 130 meters away, then no Shriekers should spawn, and you can take these out a lot easier, and you can also just take your time doing it. And now to move over to bots. So let's go ahead and start with everyone's favorite enemy, the Hulk. Now Hulks can be one-shot by each of these rockets directly in their eye. Now the problem with this is it seems like it's a very, very small area to land this rocket in the Hulk's eye. I do not always one-shot Hulks in the eyes. It's pretty inconsistent for me as well, so I'm not going to act like it's easy to do this. But again, stun grenades are going to be your best friend. Now usually when I've aimed like slightly above the skull from a kind of a medium distance, I kind of can get that one shot a little bit consistently, but that's if I have them stunned. And if you don't end up one-shotting it in the face, usually Hulks get two-shotted by any rocket. All right, now next, the most satisfying bot enemy to take out with rockets has to be dropships. All it takes is one shot to the engine and they go spinning out of the air. Now the best launcher for this by far is the Recoilless Rifle. With a 5-second reload speed, you'll be able to take down every other dropship if you're wearing your own backpack, killing the first, reloading during the second, taking down the third, etc. If you have a team reload though, you can easily take down every dropship from a flare. The most dropships I've seen from a single flare is 6, and you get 6 ammo with the Recoilless Rifle. Now, of course, if you're doing eradicate missions like the clip I'm showing, and you can take this to the extreme, you know, just for the fun of it, you can actually do some pretty nutty stuff with Recoilless Rifles. Now, the only thing worth mentioning is that for some reason, enemies on dropships don't always die. A lot of the times they do, and I think they are still worth shooting down in general, but sometimes they kind of just get trapped underneath and they don't actually die, and they can kind of still shoot at you. So this isn't super relevant right now, but if they fix this one day, keep this in mind, and I hope they make it so that there's a consistent explosion when the dropship falls so that it will kill all the enemies on board. All right, when it comes to cannon turrets and Annhialator tanks, one rocket will take out nearly all of their health. You want to land it on top or the side so that splash damage hits the heat sink. And then you can literally finish it off with one shot from the Scorcher. And that means that the Scorcher is pretty much the best combo with rockets due to this utility. Next, we went for Detector towers and Stratagem jammers. Now, I had a trio all equipped with Recoilless Rifles and Quasar Cannons. It did not seem like we could destroy them at all. Now, you are actually able to destroy detector towers with orbital lasers pretty effectively, and I'm not sure why these launchers can't destroy them, but when it comes to stratagem towers, a lot of the time they spawn with a fabricator next to them, and if you blow up that fabricator, it'll blow up the jammer. Just keep in mind you need a pretty direct hit to the vents with any rocket to destroy it. It is a little bit annoying to blow up fabricators with these rocket launchers. You really want to get straight on shots because for some reason rockets will ricochet if you have almost any sort of angle, but it is also possible to destroy fabricators with rockets. Now, luckily, when it comes to anti-air or mortars, it seems like a shot anywhere on these will destroy them, or at least anywhere on the base. Now, I purposefully shot the front of the anti-air. Hopefully I'm playing the clip of it in the background. I didn't need to hit the heatsink at all, and it was still just one shot. All right, so we've covered bugs and we've covered bots. Let's talk about some of the pros and cons and comparisons between each of these weapons. And let's go ahead and start with the reload time and some of the ammo. Now, the Quasar Cannon has infinite ammo, but it has a 10-second cooldown before you can shoot it again. Now, keep in mind, you can actually shoot it again while there's still a little bit of energy left in the battery visually, so you don't need to let this go completely, but it is 10 seconds. Now, the Recoilless Rifle has a 5-second reload, but also the Recoilless Rifle's reload can be broken into 3 different parts. Part 1 is emptying the rocket, you can disrupt that. And then part 2 is putting a new rocket into it, and you can then disrupt that again. And then part 3 is closing the chamber. And just keep in mind that this is handy information depending on how chaotic the situation is. Oftentimes, if you can at least empty the rocket and split this into 2 parts, that's probably the best way to do it, and that's usually how I do it. And the eats is obviously expendable, but maybe we can mention that sometimes you need to run around in a big circle to retrieve the second one, because that is relevant information to getting your second shot. Now, another thing for the Quasar Cannon is it also has either a 3 or 3.5 second windup time. Now, this windup time is noticeable when fighting bugs. If you're trying to land your shot on a Bile Titan, a random scavenger or warrior can swipe you, so just keep in mind you kind of want a pretty clear radius around yourself. And let's mention that the Recoilless Rifle requires you to wear a backpack. So against bots, for example, even though I mentioned that this is the best dropship weapon, wearing a shield backpack is very nice for survivability against bots. However, I will also mention that I play a lot with the spear and Recoilless Rifle. I always wear those backpacks, and I usually don't bring backpack stratagems. And what that means is while my teammates all have backpack stratagems, I'm able to bring an extra airstrike or an extra turret or an extra orbital, and this is definitely relevant when making this decision, as you will have more firepower in your stratagems. Meaning that this downside of not wearing backpack does have a slight upside to it. It kind of just depends on what you prefer. And then finally, the eats. This is at its strongest when you're running it alongside another support weapon like the flamethrower or the arc thrower. That way you get access to really strong mobbing support weapons, but you also have some access to really strong anti-tank launchers. And I was thinking about it, but a really interesting option could be combining the eat and the Quasar Cannon. That way when you shoot your Quasar Cannon, Cannon and it's on cooldown, you can pick up and eat really quick to finish off a Bile Titan, for example. That could be something interesting I haven't actually tried yet. And then the last pro worth mentioning for the Quasar Cannon is it does have unlimited ammo, and this is definitely a major upside. I do think the wind up time and the reload speed is relevant downsides, but the fact that this obviously has unlimited ammo is going to be very helpful. Now, obviously with the Recoilless Rifle, you do only get 6 shots when you spawn it in, but you can fill this up with resupplies or ammo packs you find, and that's one reason I've really been enjoying the Recoilless Rifle over the Expendable Anti Tank. And obviously the Quasar Cannon just dropped the other day, so I will be playing with it more to see how it fits my playstyle. But basically, you have a Quasar Cannon with unlimited ammo, but it's the slowest to shoot. The Recoilless Rifle with 6 ammo, which can be resupplied, and it can probably shoot just as fast as you are running in a circle to pick up your second eat. And then you have the Eat, which plays more of a support role in supplementing yourself or your teammates with rockets they can quickly use and go back to the normal weapons. And before anyone gets in the comments trying to say Recoilless Rifle is pointless, I want to point out that even against bugs, you'd never be able to get back-to-back kills like the one in the clip I'm showing. You would never be able to do this with the Quasar Cannon, just simply based on the wind-up time, let alone the cooldown. Now, if you look at these comparisons, you can see why I honestly think these are all side grades to each other, which I am honestly really happy about. When they release new weapons, I am not a fan of power creep in games. I don't want to just be forced onto the new weapon. I'd rather have side grades where they all have pros and cons against each other, and that's why I wanted to make this more of a guide video to show you guys all these pros and cons. And rocket launchers have always been my favorite weapon types in a lot of the video games I play. They all have the same anti-tank damage and power, but they all shine in different situations. And now let's get on to our quick spear rant to end off this video. So I have a couple things to say about the spear, and the first thing we got to talk about is the lock-on. Now the lock-on, a lot of people say it's bugged, but it actually works consistently, and I'm definitely going to explain myself. Now, the first thing about the spear lock-on is you need to be at least 60 meters away from an enemy to be able to lock on. But sometimes it locks on at a shorter distance, but if it does, it goes over the enemy's head. So you do got to be that 60 meters away. Now, on top of that, what it really seems like it suffers from is the arc thrower problem, whereas if there's a tiny little bush in the way or a fence, it doesn't want to lock on at all. Now, I feel this isn't a bug. I feel it's more of an oversight with how their coding for the lock-on works. For example, I think they intended it to make it so like if an enemy is behind a mountain, it's not going to lock onto them. But basically what ended up happening was that bushes, fences, and tiny obstructions also get in the way. Now, I could be wrong about that, but that's just kind of my thoughts on it. Now, I actually thought of a really interesting fix to this, and that's to make it so that all you need to do to lock onto an enemy is ping that enemy. And if that enemy moves behind a obstruction, you can still lock onto it and kill it. This would be very fair because if you're able to see an enemy, you're able to ping an enemy. You wouldn't be able to just kill enemies from behind mountains, for example, but at the same time, a tiny bush wouldn't get in your way. Now, the second issue I want to talk about with the spear falls under one of these categories, either the damage, the splash radius, the weak point targeting, or the ammo economy. One of these issues needs to be fixed because as it sits, the spear has the worst ammo economy out of all the rockets, and pretty much the worst ammo economy in the game for that matter, because it only comes with 5 ammo and every single resupply or ammo pack only gives you 1 rocket back. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't one-shot everything, so if I'm only getting 1 ammo per resupply, then why aren't I one-shotting everything? And if you don't want it to one-shot everything, then give me more ammo. Now, the other thing is not only does it not one-shot everything, but it also doesn't even always 2 or 3 or 4-shot everything. In fact, it consistently misses weak points. When you're shooting a tank, for example, you could waste every single ammo on the spear because if it targets the front of the tank and it's not doing enough damage, any damage to the heatsink, then it's not going to kill the tank at all. You could literally waste all the ammo of the spear on a tank because it's constantly hitting the front. I've also had spears lock on to the Bile Titan's back armor and kind of blow the hole in the top of the Bile Titan's armor, and then the second rocket I shot landed right nearby it, but it still didn't kill the Bile Titan even though it seems like the splash radius should have been hitting that exposed flesh. So I actually mentioned splash radius because I actually think that's one way to fix this issue, meaning that no matter where it hits an enemy, it will always end up hitting that weak point, because if it has a larger radius, it'll be able to hit the heat sink on the back of the tank, for example, even if it lands at the front of the tank. So not only does the lock-on system need an overhaul, but some other aspect of either the damage, splash radius, weak point targeting, or ammo needs to change. And that's my mini rant on the spear. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And of course, I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.